Okay, today I'm going to teach you about drawing with Microsoft Word. Now, first of all, you need to know that drawing with Microsoft Word is not what you want to do. If you want to draw on a computer, you want to use Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw or some kind of a drawing program that's really, truly dedicated to drawing. But the Microsoft Word does have drawing things in it, and I do find them really handy. So I'm going to start off with going to Insert, and we're going to go to Shapes. Now, this is the toolbar that you're going to see, and you'll see at the top there's recently used shapes, and I have had this program open and I've been using it, so there's different shapes that are showing up here. They will change as you use them. So the first thing I'm going to start off with is a line, and I'm going to click on it. If I just click, it just inserts a line. I don't want that, so I'm going to press delete. So I'm going to go back here and click on Insert Shape. I'm going to click on the line, and I'm going to click and drag. And now it creates a line that has handles on the side. You see how those are handles? And with these handles, you can click and you can move them around and make it shorter and longer. And if I come between this, you see how my cursor has the crosshair arrows on there? That is a universal tool for move, and I can click and I can move this around. Okay? Now, I can do some editing and some changing, some formatting rather, and up here, but I actually like to have the pop-up menu. So I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to come down here to Format Shape. And when I do, I will see this menu right here. Okay? Right now there is no fill and there is a line. One thing I do want to point out is that this and this will switch places as you're using it, and it's kind of weird in this version, and newer it changes. In older versions it stays the same. But starting off with this line, first thing I can do is change the color, and you have all of these theme colors that Microsoft Word comes up with, and I think they're kind of rather boring. And then you have the standard colors, which are more the rainbow type, and then you can see these are the recent colors that I've used, and I can come down here to more colors and I can choose even more, and I'll show you that in a minute. Right now I'm just going to make this red, and I can make this a wider line, and you can see I can change and make this double line, or thick then thin, or thin then thick then thin, and it gets really exciting. Okay, I'm going to go back and make it solid again. I can also come and change it the dash. This right here says it's a dotted line. Well, it looks square to me. That's because you have the cap type. The cap type right now is flat. If I change this to round, you can see that these turn into round dots, and the wider I make them, the different size the dots will change as well. I can make this into a longer dotted line which has the curved lines, and I can have it into dash then dotted, and I can have it dash then dot then dot then dash. Oh my goodness, it gets exciting. Let's go back and make that solid again. Now, join type, I'll get to that in a minute. That has to do with you when you have shapes. You can't do it with a solid line right now. I'm going to go here to the begin arrow type. I can click and add an arrow to the beginning of it. With the arrow size, I can make it a small one or a long one and large one and skinnier. And you can change the kinds of arrows. And you can even have it add all kinds of things on there, okay? And you can also have it end with a different kind of arrow, and you can do all the variations for that too. So let's press delete and get rid of that. I'm going to go to insert, and I'm going to insert another shape here. I'm going to come down to these other lines. You can have an arrow already, arrow with two lines, all these things. I don't usually use these too much. This one right here is called the curve, and I use that one quite a bit. If I click and I click and pull and click and pull, you can see I can make this curvy line. If I double click, it ends that, and there you have the line, and again you can make all of these different variations in lines. But one of the things that you can do is you can give it a fill, and so I can go here and say a solid fill, Let's make it a color so you can see I can have this lovely line, but from here to here, there's no line. So when you have a shape and when you're drawing a line and you want it to be completely filled in, you would want to go like this. Click, 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 click. And I'm going to come here to the beginning of it. You see how it automatically starts filling that in. If I click, notice it's going to end in a point, but when I join it, it rounds it off. And so it gives it a fill automatically. There's some preset fill colors here. I don't like being told what color to use. I like my own colors. So I am going to come here and I'm going to change the color. Let's say make it yellow, and I'll make the line. Actually, I can have it have no line, even though it's a line. I can give it a solid line. I can make it, let's go blue, and let's make it much wider. And I can make it a dotted line. And again, the cap type, I'm going to make it round. And there you go. A nice, interesting, weird shape. I'm going to press delete. Another kind of line you can use is this one right here. This one is called freeform. If I click, 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 that will keep giving me straight edges until I click and hold, and I can make it curvy. And when I let go, it goes box. If I double click right now, it would end the line, but if I close it off, it fills it in already. Okay? All right, the last one I want to show you is the squiggly line. Now the squiggly line is going to come in handy. You can just kind of go like this. As soon as you let go, it finishes off that line. This comes in handy when I'm doing drawings and I'm trying to make something, and I'm going to try to make something here. My desk is very small, so let's see if I can do it. Oh, it's terrible looking. I'm making a hand, and I'm going to come here, and you might think, oh my gosh, that's the worst looking hand ever. I'm going to make it have no line, so it doesn't have an outline around the outside of it. And the fill, I'm going to give it a peach color because I'm a white girl. Okay, now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make this much, much smaller. And the nice thing about this is when you draw with the squiggly line and you make it a lot smaller so it finally fits in your... Suddenly it doesn't look so weird because it's smaller, and you'll find out that you can get away with it not looking as beautiful as you think it can. Next thing we're going to do here is fill in a shape. And so I'm going to come down here to rectangles, and I'm going to click and drag and make a rectangle. Now if you just click, it just makes its own size, whatever you want, but I like to click and drag so I can control it. I am going to give it a fill color of, let's give it an orange color. And again, I can have a line. I can give it all kinds of lines, but right now I'm going to say no line just so we can see what's going on. Now, not only can you draw this rectangle, but if you draw by holding down the shift key, it will draw it in perfect proportions. You see, if this is without a shift, and when I hold down shift, it makes sure it is perfect proportions. So if you need to have a perfect square, click and drag and hold down the shift key, and you will make it perfect square. That goes the same way if you are going to make a circle. If you have the oval and you hold down the shift key, it will make it into a perfect circle. Okay? Now, there are all kinds of shapes here that you can use, and when you have these shapes, you have on the sides, you have these handles, and these handles are what can make you can resize this, so you can make it narrower, or you can make it shorter. Now you notice I'm changing the shape of the triangle here. If I decide that's a perfect triangle, that's exactly what I wanted, if I hold down the shift key as I drag the sideways, the corner handle, I'm dragging it in perfect proportion. So if you decide you want it to be smaller but you want the same shape, hold down the shift key, it makes it in perfect proportion. Okay, and you see I let it go in the wrong order, so it changed. I have to let go of the clicker before I let go of the shift. Okay, so you have these handles. Now sometimes you're going to get some different shapes. Let's try this triangle right here, And when I do this, and again, boring color, so let's change this. See how I have a yellow handle here? This yellow handle will allow me to move things a little differently. So you're going to get some more choices when you get the yellow handle. The curvy line right here shows you that you can rotate this. Okay, so you can rotate it around any way you want. You got to make sure that you realize that some of these shapes in here, when you draw them, you say, oh, okay, that's what it is. But if you adjust these shapes, you can see that you can make something that looks completely different than what you originally had. So don't be limited by, so you can see that looks much different than where I started. So make sure you adjust those handles. All right, everything you draw in Microsoft Word is an object. If you notice, I've been coloring them as I go. That's what you need to do. You cannot make a line and then a line and then a line and a line. You can't. There's no paint bucket tool. So you have to draw things as objects, and that is one of the hardest things to get used to doing. And if you want to delete them, you must select them and press delete. There is no eraser tool. So that's the biggest adjustment when using Microsoft Word as a drawing tool. If I come to the shapes and I click, let's just do a basic circle, or a rectangle rather. I'm going to grab this. You notice right now I have this as a solid color. I'm going to go no line. I can make this have a gradient fill, which is really exciting. So there's my gradient. I just happen to use these colors last. I can adjust these. I can click on this and go and change the color and make whatever kind of gradient I want. And you'll see that I have different kinds of gradients. By default, they get a linear gradient. So when you have the linear gradient, you will see that there are directions. I can have it go from top to bottom, or bottom to top, or left to right in diagonals. You can even go and you can change that angle yourself by changing it. And I don't have very different colors, so it's harder to see, but you can do that. You can also change the to a radial gradient, and when you have a radial gradient, you can see you may not be able to see that. Let's make that a brighter color so you can see it better. And we'll make this a darker color. I'll go here and I'll make it just a little bit darker in the same color family. Okay, so now you can start seeing that it's more of a radial gradient, and you can see I can have it go from the corner or from the top, and you can adjust those quite a bit. If I had a circle, you'd be able to see it looks spherical. If I change this to rectangular, I now can have this take on a rectangular shape. And then the next one, I need to have a different size, a different shaped object to show you. So I'm going to go to Insert, and let's see, we'll grab a, let's see if I can find a star, if I can think right now. Oh, apparently I can't think right now. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to click and I'll hold down the Shift key. You'll see that I have a new handle that I can adjust to. Now, it looks like a star, right? Well, if you decide you want to have a star that has more angles, but look, you can even make it like that. That doesn't even look like a star anymore. So remember, adjust those yellow handles. So let's go back here and we'll go and give it a gradient. And again, I'll give it no line so it's not as distracting. If I change this to a path, you can see that I'm making it take on the shape of the path. And as I change that shape, that path shows up more. To make it even more fun, I can make my own gradient. Let's see, let's make this red, and I'll click right here and add a new stop, and I'll make this one orange. Uh-oh, this is getting exciting. Oh my goodness, it's like I'm making a rainbow. I love rainbows. And gotta have a blue one. We'll go that blue. Oh wow, isn't this just beautiful? And you can adjust them to show how much colors show up where. And there you go. Now, let's go ahead and make this larger again, and I'm just going to make it this shape. I can go back in here and I can choose a pattern fill. Now pattern fills really come in handy when you want to have different objects. Aren't those lovely colors? Let's make it a little bit more subtle so our eyes don't blow up. And you can have it like this. If you see that if you're doing a house drawing like we do in class, we can change it. Let's see, I would want the bricks to be, the mortar to be gray, and the bricks, I'll give it a brown color. And you can see there's a nice brick color for a house. There's all kinds of different patterns in here that you can make different effects with. Then when we go to picture, now there's picture or texture fill. Now isn't that interesting that's grabbing this one? That must have been the last one I used. Let's go to texture first. There are built-in textures that you can use. And when you first see these, you think, oh my gosh, isn't this exciting? But if you've been using this program as long as I have, honestly, the last 30 years, they have had exactly the same textures. They have not changed any textures in 30 years. So you will understand why I will not be impressed if you use them. So what we do instead is go to Insert Picture from File, and I can go to my picture folder and I can grab some kind of an object. I don't even know what I have here. Here's a picture of some kids, and I can show it in there. Notice it's stretching it a little bit, so it's not really filling it very well. But if you wanted to have a picture that had, you know, a different shape, there you go. Okay. And I'm going to press delete. Now, one of the things I told you before is that every time you draw something, you are drawing an object. And so therefore, if you want to draw something and you want to delete it later, you have to select it and press delete. To change the layer order, because everything's getting piled up like a pancake, you need to select it, and you're going to go, notice that there's a new drawing tools toolbar here. If you click on here, you have to arrange it, and there's the arrange section. I've got several choices here. I can say bring forward or bring to front, or I can do send backward or send to back. Now send to back sends it all the way behind everything. Bring to front brings it all the way to the front. However, there's some times when you have lots and lots of layers, you want to bring it all the way to the front, but then send backward, send backward, send backward, send backward. And you can see how one layer at a time. And as I move this around, you'll still see bring forward, bring forward, bring forward, bring forward, bring forward. And I'm bringing them forward one at a time. And they're still all layered on top of each other, but I can change the order. This doesn't look very hard because I only have a few shapes, but can you imagine if we're doing our house drawing and we have hundreds of layers? Sometimes it's going to be easier if you say, okay, well, I want this layer to be above the other ones. Sometimes it's easier to grab it, bring it all the way to the front, and then send it backwards a couple layers to get it in the correct order. Now, when we're drawing shapes, we talked about the shape having a line, and I'm going to format this. I'm going to right click and format that shape again, and when I talk about the line, I'm going to make that line very large, and let's make it a different color just so it stands out. That's obnoxious, so let's go a little bit duller. I'm just going to go a little darker in the same color family. Okay, so if you look at this, you can see that the corners of this are rounded, and by default they come out rounded. Some versions they're by default squared off, but they're not in this version. So if I click here and you look at the join type, we didn't talk about that before because we only had a line, but now we're going to talk about this. By default they are round. If you choose beveled, then you will have the corners kind of snipped off like someone snipped them with a pair of scissors. And if you choose the join type to be mitered, then you get a nice squared off edge. So you can imagine if I were making a window, I could make something that looks like this. Now, if this were my window, I would not have the, let's say the color of my window frame might be, let's say my window frame is gray. So I'm going to make my window frame gray, and my fill, I'm going to give this a gradient. Let's get rid of all these extra crazy colors. And I'm going to take it down to, let's make this a nice light blue color. I'm going to click and make another nice light blue color. And in the center, I'm going to make it white. And I will make this into a linear gradient and give it a diagonal. So now that kind of, you can almost imagine that being a window pane. Let's make it a little bit smaller so it fits on the screen. One of the things I like to do around my window frame is make some shutters on the side of it. So I'm going to go like this. And again, I'm going to make the outline a little bit bigger. I'm going to make the join type to be mitered because I want nice square edges around it. My shutters are going to be, let's have them be a dark blue color here. And so my fill, I'm going to choose a pattern fill. I'm going to choose that same dark blue color. Then I'm going to come here and choose that same dark blue color, but this time I'm going to adjust this one and make it just a little bit lighter in the same color family. And so it looks like that. And you can imagine that kind of looks like a pair, some shutters, doesn't it? And if I copied that, Control C and Control V, like we learned in earlier lessons, then I have two shutters on the side of my house. So you can imagine how that would be kind of fun. Another object that you can draw is a text box. And so when I click on that, if you just click, it creates one, but I like to have a little bit more control. So I click and drag and I create a text box. From here, you can type anything I want, and you want anything you want. And just like in any other text, you can go here and change that font to something more exciting and a little bit larger. And you can center it or right align it. You can give it a color. And you can even give, if I'm going to click on the edge of this, and so that I have the box itself selected, I can go and I've got to go, this is text. I want to go to the shape options now. I'm going to give it a fill of yellow, and maybe I'm going to give it an outline, not boring black. Let's see, green, and we'll make it a little bit bigger. And maybe I'll make it dash then dotted. And again, you can see it's rounded off here on the corners, and you can adjust that. And again, adjusting the size of it will line up how it meets at the corners. You can resize this any way you want. The nice thing about a text box is you can move it anywhere you want. Notice I can actually move it off the screen. Now, why in the world would you want to move it off the screen? Well, in Microsoft Word, you probably wouldn't. However, in PowerPoint, you could imagine how you could put something off the screen and have it animate on, and that might be kind of exciting and fun. With a text box, you can rotate it. You can put it any way you want, including in the margins. Now, keep in mind your printer will not print to the edges, and some of that will be cut off if you don't have an edge-to-edge printer. But you can move it any way you want, in any angle you want. So that's an advantage of having a text box. There comes a time in every boy and girl's life when they start to feel certain urges. I'm talking about drawing hearts. What are you talking about? Come on. Okay, I'm going to grab this gradient and I'm going to give it, let's go purple, and I'm going to give it a lighter purple, and I'm just going to get rid of that one. And I do not want it to have a line. and I will make it a path. Now I don't want the dark on the inside, I want the dark on the outside, so I'm going to flip-flop those. And so now, oh, look at this lovely heart. I'm going to grab the arrow tool. Let's make that black. I'm going to copy and paste. And let's have that have an end. And no end. So it looks like that. Well, that's starting to look kind of fun, huh? All right, now I'm going to add a text box, and I'm going to click and drag, and I'm going to write Wendy loves Alan. And this is about the time when there's always some kid in the class that yells out, "Is that your husband?" And I'll say, "No, that's my boyfriend." And they'll go, "What?" And then of course I'm joking. My husband and I are about ready to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary next week. Isn't that exciting? It is for me. Okay, so I'm going to go like that. Now, doesn't that look great? No, it doesn't look good. That looks ridiculous. So I'm going to grab the edge of it, and this time I'm going to say the text box should have no fill. And I clicked the wrong thing because I'm on text options, so I got to make sure I undo that. I'm going to grab the edge of it like I meant to do, and I'm going to go to shape options. I'm going to make sure I have no fill and no line, so it would look like that. But I don't even want to stop there. I'm going to go up here. Now normally I would not have white text because it wouldn't show up. However, because I have the heart in the background, I can see that the white text kind of gives it a negative space, and so it looks kind of cool. Now doesn't that look cool? Now I want to move it. Oops, can't move it. Oops, I really did oops. Okay, I'm going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to select one more. I'm still holding shift, I'm still holding shift, and I'm just going to select all these things. Now in the drawing tools, I'm going to come over here to the group, and I'm going to group that all as one object. Now if I click off and I click back on it and I try to move it, you see how it moves together? So it's too big. I want it smaller. So I'm going to grab the corner handle, hold down the shift key, and I'm going to click and drag this. But you will notice two things happen. One, my text does not resize because the text is set at 24, and so therefore it is 24. So if I want to have the text be smaller, I'm going to click to insert my cursor, Control A to select all, and I actually have to change the text to a smaller text. So be aware of that if that happens. You'll also have to notice that the line, I had this 7.5 width. If you want to make that smaller, you have to adjust it. It does not change the width. If I make this bigger again, that will still stay that smaller size. All right, another thing you can do that we didn't talk about yet. I'm going to just make a simple rectangle, and I'm going to make the fill. By the way, you don't have to have a fill. You can just have a plain empty box. Ooh, that's a little bright. Tone it down there, Golsky. So let's make this a little thicker so we can see it. One of the things that you can do with the line, you can make a gradient line too, so that can really get exciting. There are preset gradients that you can choose, and they're kind of boring, but you can see that they're there, and of course you can create your own gradient. Let's say I want to change this color to something a little bit brighter, and it can get really fun. You can have it go linear or radial, and it will change how it shows up on here. And of course you can also change those directions as well. So some of them they'll show up better than others. So that's kind of fun. Here is something else. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm going to grab the scribble tool and I'm just going to scribble, 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 scribble. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And when I let go, I'm going to right click and say Format Shape. And I do not get this. I'm going to have a line with no line. However, I am going to give it a gradient fill. And let's make this really fun. Oh yeah. I need a little bit more orange in there, and then we're going to give it a purple. Ooh, yeah, but not a radial. We're going to go linear. Ooh, but no line. Hey, stop it. Wrong one. Okay, no line, I said. Okay, and there, or we can go radial, or we can go rectangular. And if we change this, oh my goodness, isn't that exciting? Don't you wish you were in class right now doing this? I sure do. All right, well, I'm going to stop right there and we'll tune in to the next video, part 2. I'll show you a whole bunch more stuff I haven't even started yet, folks.